It was another disappointing loss for the Indianapolis Colts to the Houston Texans as Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen put forth another rocky performance. Is Richardson's future with the Colts in jeopardy? And where do the Colts go from here? Drake, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, what a game yesterday. What a frustrating game for Colts fans yesterday. I think it was honestly, this Colts team could have won. And probably, I wouldn't say should have won because they deserve to lose considering what happened on the offensive side of the ball. But Taylor comes back and runs for 100 yards. The defense really honestly holds the Texans to, let's face it, 16 points. It was 23 on the scoreboard, but in my opinion, it was 16. But it was just another game where you saw Anthony Richardson not play up to what we know he's capable of. A lot of mistakes, a lot of Shane Steichen not helping him out with the play calls. And obviously, what we're all going to be talking about this evening, the sub out from Anthony Richardson. Terrible look for this Indianapolis Colts team.
Yeah, so we'll dive into it, and a lot of it is going to be Anthony Richardson just because it has to be. You're talking about the quarterback, 4th overall pick, future of your franchise, but disappointing, man. The team lost by only 3, but they probably could have won this game if there were just some catches that shouldn't have been drops. Maybe some better play calls, less aggression at the end of the first half. There's a lot of reasons the Colts lost this game, not just Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into that tonight. Obviously, the big topic of conversation is Anthony Richardson, how he played, what happened on the sub out, the response to that. As now, is there a quarterback controversy in Indianapolis? Hey, it seems like everything is on the table, but we're going to talk about it all tonight. And we want to hear from you, Colts fans. We want to hear the good, the bad. What is your honest opinion? Everything is welcome here tonight. And we're starting it off hot with Truett and his super chat. As always, getting us started off. Truett, thank you so much for all of your support. And Truett says, I really didn't want to represent tonight, but he loves us. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And in a Colts fan sort of way, I used to dislike people saying draft Arch Manning. Now, not so much. Well, Arch Manning wouldn't be available till probably at least the 2026 NFL draft, more so looking at the 2027 NFL draft, knowing the Manning family. So, but appreciate you, Truett, for all of your support. NFL Nerd says, I wouldn't bench AR for poor play, but everyone's counting on his best effort. Gotta send a culture message. NFL Nerd says, I think benching AR for at least a game or two to send a message to the entire team. So some strong words from NFL Nerd. Good to see you there. Addison, how would an 8th grade football coach handle the AR situation? We'll talk about how the Colts are going to handle this situation. I don't know so much about an 8th grade football coach. Grounded. The CFO is here, albeit just for a little bit. The fix is in. They're riding with Richardson until the wheels fall off and they can draft Arch Manning. Was Irsay's plan all along, from what I gather. Trust me, I know. I have a new airport best friend. Yes, if you guys, I was going to mention this on the show tonight. Thank you, Patrick, for already bringing it up. Patrick sent me a picture. He's in LaGuardia Airport. He saw none other than Jeff Saturday there, and so now he has a new close personal friend in Jeff Saturday. But glad that you were able to show up, Patrick. Stats Matt, what's up about the Vikings game? I think it deserves 2 episodes of preview, so let's just skip a game review from yesterday, please. You know that's not going to happen. Third host of the show. I hope you have your stats ready because there's some damning ones out there, I think, that we could bring up. Paul Wilson as well. He has to be benched. Not fair to hold a whole team up over one player. At the very least, bench him for the Sunday night game. I don't think football-wise he has ever been told you have consequences. So, I mean, we're got a lot of people tonight talking about benching Anthony Richardson. Sean Contwright is here as well. Good to see you. And Yim, give him the remainder of the season, no matter how bad. And if he looks the same at the end, then I think it's fair to move on. So we're going to talk about it from all different angles tonight, guys. And if you haven't done so, now is the perfect time to subscribe and follow all of our social social medias, like Indianapolis Colts on SI on X, as at Colts on _SI. So make sure you do that. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, and then make sure you're subscribed here to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel and click that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or for special breaking news episodes. If we have to, if there's a day where a new starting quarterback is announced, Drake and I are probably going to have an episode that night. So you want to make sure you have that bell icon on. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. So Drake, the Colts were swept by the Texans this year, 23-20 in the AFC South battle at NRG Stadium. And honestly, Drake, the game got off to a really good start for the Indianapolis Colts. That's something that they have been able to do, is get off to pretty good starts this year for the most part. And then everything started to hit the fan. And of course, we have to talk about Anthony Richardson first. And we got to talk about the sub-out play. Obviously, that is the game that everybody, or that's the play that everybody is talking about. So after a scramble in the third quarter, it was on a 2nd and goal play. It was after a big penalty from that would have been a touchdown to Alec Pierce, offensive PI called on Michael Pittman Jr. Anthony Richardson scrambled on that play, and then he scrambles on the ensuing play, throws a 300-pound defensive lineman off and scrambles, doesn't get the first down, stands up and taps his helmet saying that he needs to be subbed out. And Drake, I'll be honest, I know that the GOAT Mike Chappell has brought up that it has happened in previous games, but that game was before my time. Or if it was happening, I think I was a newborn when it happened in 1994. I have never seen a quarterback sub himself out of the game, and that kind of echoes what a lot of other people have been saying throughout the day since the game ended last week. Really haven't seen that before. And at first I thought, oh no, he's injured, something's hurt. And then he acted like he was normal, just walked to the bench. So that was a little bit confusing. Turns out, as he said after the game, he was just tired. And I do want to give the exact quote from Anthony Richardson here, so we have all the information available. Richardson was asked about the subbing out, and he said, I was tired. I ain't going to lie. That was a lot of running right there that I did, and I didn't think I was going to be able to do that next play. Drake, we kind of talked about this a little bit on Bleacher Report yesterday, but we didn't have all the facts in front of us when it actually happened, or and everything that actually happened with it. So our takes probably have changed a little bit. Just give me your honest take about Anthony Richardson subbing out of the game on that 3rd and goal. And granted, it was a 3rd and long goal, but still 3rd and goal. You're in a divisional matchup with the team that's leading the division, and you sub out of the game. I can't remember an instance that's ever happened from the quarterback perspective. So just what's your honest take on Anthony Richardson subbing himself out?
I guess the easiest way to describe it is, it's just like your team, you're the quarterback, and Pat McAfee kind of alluded to this, but you're the quarterback, you're the face of the franchise. You don't get off the field if you're healthy. You don't leave the field if you can stand. Okay, I know that you threw a 318-pound defensive tackle. You yourself are also 6'5", 260 pounds of pure muscle. Okay, threw him, takes a big hit, stands right up like you said. He leaves the field. I don't know, man. I think it sends a message to especially guys like your offensive linemen who are protecting you. I'm tired. You guys handle that while I recoup, and I'll be back out there. And it's like Dan Orlovsky, Damian Woody, by the way, former Super Bowl offensive lineman, Pro Bowl offensive lineman, said, imagine talking to the offensive lineman after you do that. Dan Orlovsky was like, I can't imagine Richardson getting back in there and going, hey guys, now that I'm back, let's do a 10-play drive and go win this game. It's an AFC South game that has implications. The division's on the line, man. Like, you cannot leave the damn field if you are healthy. He knows that too. Okay, so I think that there's some conversations, and they've already been had with Richardson. But honestly, man, gut reaction, unacceptable, can't happen. He knows it. He's not stupid, and he let the team down. That's what he did. So.
Yeah, he did. It sends a terrible message. And I saw some people on X talking about how, in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't like he subbed himself out on a very important play. The Colts were going to run the football anyway, so he wasn't really going to be doing anything. I think that's besides the point. I really do, because you look at this Colts team right now, you have Jonathan Taylor, and DeForest Buckner. Both those guys were busting their ass to get back from their high ankle sprains to go out there and play. And both of those guys played phenomenal football. I mean, Jonathan Taylor goes out there, first game back, it's 100 yards and a touchdown. DeForest Buckner sacks C.J. Stroud, was dialing up consistent pressure on the interior all game long. Those guys battle back. You have Michael Pittman Jr., who is well below 100%. In my opinion,
Sure.
The way he has been playing, maybe it's better if Michael Pittman doesn't play and actually does get healthy, because he's been a shell of himself lately. But Michael Pittman is doing everything he can to be out there. Josh Downs is dealing with a toe injury and a groin injury. He goes out there and gets 100 yards and a touchdown, but almost had 2 touchdowns, really. And then you have Braden Smith. Braden Smith is grinding every week to get out there, dealing with this knee injury for almost 2 years in a row. You have all of these guys who are doing everything they can to get out there and play this game, grinding through injuries, grinding through pain, probably in the training room for most of the week just to get out there with a chance to play. And Anthony Richardson taps his head to get out. It says because he's tired. That's not going to sit well. It's a very bad. The optics are bad. The message it's sending is terrible. And I think the criticism that he is receiving today from whether it's pundits on ESPN that aren't really connected with the situation, to Pat McAfee, who on his show, to us that cover the team every single day, to those inside that locker room that have already had conversations with him. Shane Steichen had conversation with him and the entire quarterbacks room today and said that can't happen. Ryan Kelly, who is I know people don't necessarily, maybe they think of somebody else as the unquestioned leader. Ryan Kelly is the elder statesman of this group. He's the unquestioned leader of this team. He is the guy that if there's a message that needs to be sent, it's Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly sat down with Anthony Richardson today and talked through it and said, he made it clear that this can't happen. And Ryan Kelly even said, which I thought this was very telling as well, Ryan Kelly came out and said publicly to the media today that the criticism that Anthony Richardson is receiving right now is warranted. That's a big statement. That's not like the criticism's over the top or whatever. We're handling it internally. He said it's warranted. That is sending a message. That is sending a message to a young Anthony Richardson that this is not okay and never will be okay. I don't think this is something that is going to happen ever again. Obviously, I think this is something that Anthony Richardson can learn from, but it's a terrible look, Drake. And I think that with the comments and what the Colts quarterback situation is now and what Shane Steichen said today, it's a kind of a continuation of sending that message, because it's kind of, it almost seems like in some respects, Anthony Richardson is taking the starting quarterback role in Indianapolis for granted. And I'm not going to say that he is. That is just something that I've seen from way afar, and it's not anything that I can confirm. But just the way he has played, some of the comments that he has made, it's time to send a message. I don't know if benching him is the appropriate measure, because again, yes, he subbed himself out, and that's something that needs to be dealt with. But I don't think it's not like there's a lot worse things that he could have done as a teammate. But I do think that this message is being sent hard by this locker room, that this is never okay. It can never happen again, and it needs to be corrected. Hope you're on mute.
I was making sure you weren't too invested in your argument and that you were actually paying attention, Andrew. You did it, man. Thank you. Pat McAfee said it best. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he said, that kind of decision can get you fired in the NFL. And, there's a lot riding on Anthony Richardson here. Okay. Chris Ballard's GM tenure is on Richardson. All right. Is tied to Richardson. Shane Steichen's coaching is tied to Richardson. All these guys that they paid up, it was for Richardson. Okay. So Yes, I think that we've said what needs to be said, but at the end of the day, all that everyone needs to know is that the teammates, the guys who generally don't speak out like that, guys like Ryan Kelly, pretty stoic and quiet and straightforward, said that he deserves the criticism he's getting today. And that criticism has been everything from former QB saying that's not okay to former Pro Bowl offensive linemen saying, who the hell do you think you are? That's what Ryan Kelly is saying that Anthony Richardson deserves. So hopefully Richardson's taking this all in, and hopefully he's ready to have a bounce back performance because he needs it ASAP.
Yeah. You think of just the other quarterbacks that you've seen that have been really tough. Andrew Luck played a game with a lacerated kidney, guys.
Unbelievable.
He never wanted to come out of the game. Patrick Mahomes has played with worse injuries, gutting through ankle injuries where he can barely walk. And Patrick Mahomes has gone out there and won playoff games. I've seen Lamar Jackson really battle through. Josh Allen is battling through stuff every single week.
Not to mention ACL.
Phillip Rivers, not to mention the stuff that the old heads, I guess, of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady that played through. This just isn't it. It's not a part of the recipe to be a successful quarterback in the NFL. And it definitely calls his toughness into question. And honestly, I don't think he's going to be able to answer this question of his toughness or really redeem himself until another situation like this comes up, where he goes out there, whether it's playing through hurt, playing through being absolutely just incredibly exhausted and just laying it all out on the line for his team. I don't question Anthony Richardson's want to or his dedication to this team because I think we've already seen that. But the toughness and the self-awareness, I think, needs to be looked at. If you're Anthony Richardson, you need to look yourself in the mirror on that, and you need to go out there, and I think you need to go prove it to your team that you will do anything and lay it on the line for this team. Paul Wilson with the super chat. Thank you so much, buddy, for all of your support. And Paul says, I got jumped on a few weeks ago in here for calling him soft. He just isn't ready to lead this team. And honestly, Paul, I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but at this point, your criticism is very valid.
Sure.
I think you have a good point there. And you can't really argue against that until he goes out there and proves that that's not the case. So, Paul, thank you so much for all of your support, brother. Really, really do appreciate it. But Drake, let's talk about his actual performance on the field here yesterday, because it wasn't, again, and I think this is where we need to do some more explaining, because context matters in this. The 10 for 32 for 175 yards, touchdown, interception, also added 45 yards rushing. When you actually look at his performance as a whole, I mean, yes, it's not great. Obviously, when you go 10 for 32, I don't care what happened in the game. That's not a good performance at all. But when you actually look at the film, there's a lot of things that honestly, a lot of the throws Richardson did do and did throw, a lot of the balls Richardson threw yesterday were on target. A lot of them were on target. That touchdown should have been a touchdown to A.D. Mitchell. He should have gotten 2 feet down. That's a ball that is perfect in the NFL. That's where that ball should be placed. A.D. Mitchell needs to get his feet down. Full stop. Tyler Goodson drops that touchdown. The Colts do get the touchdown a couple of plays later with Jonathan Taylor, but Tyler Goodson, come on, buddy. You're supposed to be the best pass catching back the Colts have. I don't know what it is against the Texans, but Tyler Goodson, another drop. Anthony Richardson on the play before, he subbed himself out. Should have had a touchdown to Alec Pierce. The offensive pass interference was called on Michael Pittman. It was offensive pass interference because what Pittman is supposed to do on that route, Drake, is kind of lead his route in there and kind of get the incidental contact, or at least get close to the defender.
Like a natural pick.
Yes, that's following Pierce. Exactly, a natural pick. But instead, Pittman puts his arms out and just basically shoves him in the chest. Can't do that. And I don't think it was needed either, because Alec Pierce was going to be open on that play. The conversation is probably much different if we are talking about 3 to 4 touchdown passes from Anthony Richardson yesterday instead of 1 touchdown pass, 10 for 32. I think the conversation is much, much different. But what was your thoughts on Anthony Richardson's performance yesterday? And do you think that it was as bad as the box score indicates?
I think that Richardson, the offensive line didn't really help him a lot. It was a really rough game. Bernard Ryman, man, he got ate alive a little bit. I think he also had concussion symptoms at some point in the game.
Not in the game, but the concussion symptoms did show up today. Yes.
Yeah, so Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, they deserve credit. Okay, they really got to Richardson plenty of times. I think he was sacked like 5 times. So the pressure was constant. Multiple drops. I mean, my God, man, multiple miscues. I do think that even if let's just say all those drops are not drops at all. Let's even say that touchdown pass to Pierce is valid. You're still probably looking at 16, 17 completions. Is that great? No. But like Andrew said, if they win 26-23, we're like, look, Richardson, you can't take yourself out of the game and you're still inaccurate. But hey, you got that win. It's a lot different because now they're pretty much out of the AFC South running. So it's like, it's not all Richardson's fault. But when I gotta leave this, I guess, argument with this. I have never seen a stat line in the NFL of 10 for 32. That's just a smidge over 30%. I think in Andrew's article, he mentioned it was 31%, which is not okay. That's old school NBA 3-point percentage right there. That's not going to fly. You're probably most likely never going to win unless you play a really awful team, kind of like the Dolphins had with 2 different quarterbacks in the same game. So it's not all on Richardson. The box score isn't indicative of the entire performance, but I think it's a pretty good indicator that, holy crap, he's got to improve, and this offense needs to get in sync with this guy.
What's crazy, and I didn't see this stat come up until, I don't know, maybe an hour ago when I was scrolling through X. When the Texans played the Bills earlier this year, and it was actually a couple of weeks ago on October 6th. Drake, this was Josh Allen's stat line: 9 for 30 for 131 yards and a touchdown, with 54 yards rushing, almost identical to what Anthony Richardson did yesterday, minus the bad interception. And the score was even the same. The Texans won 23-20 over the Buffalo Bills. So that's Josh Allen we're talking about, guys. That's not Malik Willis. That's not Will Levis. That's not whoever the hell you want to put in there. That's Josh Allen. So it was crazy to me. And I thought it was just very interesting to see the parallels between that stat line and Anthony Richardson's stat line. But you mentioned the offensive line, Drake. Stats, Matt, stat of the day, the first stat of the day, I should say, presented by Busch Light. Anthony Richardson was pressured on 64.1% of dropbacks yesterday. Anthony Richardson is the only quarterback all season to be pressured on 60+%, and he's had that 3 times in 2024. And then part 2 of the stat of the day, it's the highest pressure percentage for a team all year and the highest percentage for Houston since prior to 2018 when Next Gen Stats started being measured. So I think I wish I could see, it would take me going back and watching the film of all of those games. I think it's probably a combination of things. Obviously, it's a combination of the Colts offensive line not playing up to snuff, but I also think it's a combination of Anthony Richardson probably holding the ball a little bit too long as well. So when you put that all together, I think it's definitely a recipe for disaster. Certainly doesn't help when you're trying to hold the ball to take those shot plays down the field either, Drake. And so again, that kind of goes into this thing where we talked about the play calling for Anthony Richardson from Shane Steichen's vantage point. It needs to be better. Shane Steichen needs to put him in better positions, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it's not like Anthony Richardson was back there in a clean pocket all day and still having a poor completion percentage that way.
Yeah, and first off, everybody, you might be seeing a couple different angles of my beautiful mug. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on with my camera situation over here. But no, man, look, at the end of the day, Shane Steichen really deserves a lot of blame here, too, because it's not the 1950s, man. This isn't, 1950 this isn't, football where you just take constant deep shots. I mean, the Texans at some point were just ready for it. They were ready for it. They were like knocking the ball away. He wasn't having high percentage throws. He wasn't being put in positions to succeed, but instead positions to fail. He didn't run the ball enough. Guess what, everybody? He's more developed as a runner than he is as a passer, but it didn't seem like the Miami Dolphins game plan was used again, where he ran 14 times, helped power that running game. Richardson only saw 6 carries in this game, and yet that damn game was close the whole time. Early in the game, you could have used Jonathan Taylor more, could have ran the ball more. No, Richardson's back there dropping back over and over and over again. And it's just like, look, man, I know that Steichen wants him to make these plays. He feels like he's got the ability to make these plays. He doesn't yet. He's not showing it. You have to dumb this thing down for him a little bit so that he can get confidence, build completions, easy stuff. Let him use his legs. Let him use that physicality, use that offensive line, that ground game. It just seemed like those things, the strength of the offense wasn't being used, which is the ground game, Richardson's athletic ability, and your deep weapons. They were just being targeted way too much and weren't being set up well.
Yeah, I agree there. And I think this kind of gets back to another stats Matt stat of the day. I'm going to skip around from your order of stats, Matt, but it says it feels like a broken record here, but Anthony Richardson's air yards per attempt was 16.1 yards, his second highest all season, and his deep pass percentage was the highest it's been all season at 37.5%. Highest tight window percentage all year as well at 40%. So not only were they trying to chuck the ball deep, Drake, there wasn't much separation by these Colts wide receivers. The Colts wide receivers definitely didn't do Anthony Richardson any favors yesterday outside of Josh Downs. And that's something that I think definitely needs to get talked about a little bit more. But obviously, Drake, now we're going to talk about the comments made today by Shane Steichen, talking about how they are evaluating everything, including the quarterback position. When Shane Steichen was asked by the Indy media today if Richardson would be the starter on Sunday, he said, we're evaluating everything. And then he tried to walk those comments back a little bit, saying, it's not just, we're not only evaluating the quarterback position, it starts with me, and it's the entire team that needs to be evaluated and decisions need to be made moving forward. But once you say that, you can't really put the cat back in the bag. You know what I'm saying? So when you're looking at this as a whole, and he said, as of right now, Anthony Richardson is our starting quarterback. But then someone asked, well, what about on Sunday? Does that mean he's going to start? And they said, well, we're evaluating everything again. So again, I if I'm being honest, Drake, I don't think that I can't see Anthony Richardson not starting the football game on Sunday because, and whether people want to admit this or not, once you bench Anthony Richardson, even if it's for a game, even if it's for 2, if it's for the rest of the season, the experiment is over. There is really no turning back. His confidence would be absolutely shot at that point. At that point, I think you would lose the locker room if you take him out and then try to put him back in again, just playing musical chairs at the quarterback position. And the thing is, once he's benched and if the experiment is over, that means that Chris Ballard is likely gone. I know a lot of fans would like that to happen, but that's just stating a fact. I think that Ballard would be gone and Shane Steichen is probably gone because let's face it, these two are tied to the hip of Anthony Richardson. And if this doesn't work out, I think Ballard is gone for definitely. And there's a high probability that Shane Steichen is gone as well, because when you bring in a new GM, that GM usually wants to bring their own head coach. And when you're trying to have a holdover coach with a GM, most of the time it doesn't work out. So if Anthony Richardson doesn't work out and you do end up benching him, then not only is Ballard gone, is Steichen gone, is AR gone, but you're probably looking at a lot of the core veterans on this team being gone as well. Get the Colts trading them, getting rid and getting them to trying to get as much draft capital and as much as they can from these guys like a DeForest Buckner, like a Grover Stewart, a Kenny Moore, these aging veterans, and going into a full scale rebuild. So that's the risk that you have. And I understand people say, well, he should be benched and then you can bring him back. Guys, this isn't Madden. This isn't Madden. These guys have feelings isn't the right word. These guys have egos. These guys have actual like, confidence. Like, you have to worry about the mental makeup of these guys. They're not NPCs that you can just put into a game and take out of a game, so that matters. And if you're gonna, it's the same situation the Panthers are going through with Bryce Young. They benched him, they brought him back, but we all know that that's not going to end well. We all know that Bryce Young isn't going to succeed in Carolina, and it's just kind of speeding up the inevitable. So in my opinion, I think this is more about sending a message to Anthony Richardson and to this team that nobody is safe, and that people, that we all need to buckle down and really start to see improvements of no matter the position. But if I'm being honest, I just don't see Anthony Richardson being benched at this point, because that would be, in my opinion, that's still giving up on this experiment way too early. You still have to give him through the whole rest of the year. You have to give him through the whole next year, because we could take a whole nother episode talking about what the options are if they do bench Anthony Richardson, because it's not good. And if you guys are wanting a quarterback in this upcoming draft class, boy, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn that I'd like to sell you. But Drake, what do you think? What do you think this message is going to be, or what do you think that it's going to happen with Shane Steichen saying that we're evaluating everything? What do you think that means?
First off, Andrew Moore with the spiciness. I love it. I got to say that I think that, when you talk about Tyler Goodson dropping a touchdown, you might be thinking about, maybe you give Evan Hull a chance. I know that that's a big stretch, but like you talk about, the offensive line didn't play up to speed. Maybe, you look at these guys and you say, hey, we need you to step up. I think that when he says everything's being evaluated, that's more of him saying, like, obviously he is not the happiest with the quarterback performance, but like, that's the whole team, the whole offense let down the Colts. It wasn't just Richardson. Okay. But you got to leave him in. You can't take him out now. And, hopefully you don't ever have to compare yourself to the David Tepper disaster that is Carolina. They're ruining Bryce Young's career. So like, I think that you have to keep Richardson in here. You send a message to him, not by benching him. You send a message to the team, not by benching him, but by the team confronting him about the issues they had with him taking himself out of the game, his erratic play. He's gonna get all that addressed within the walls of the Colts organization. So I think you got to keep him out there. And like you said, man, I know it's early. He's only 22, but if you bench this guy and you put Flacco back in, you're giving up on him for the year, and you might as well pack it up at least for this season.
Yeah, I agree. And we've got another super chat here from Paul Wilson. The man is just an absolute stud out here. Paul says, could someone explain to me who decided to throw the ball from your own 5-yard line with 30 seconds to go in the half? And Paul, first of all, thank you for all your support, brother. Again, we really do appreciate it, and it is a good question. And it's the guy that calls the plays. It's Shane Steichen. Shane Steichen was even asked about it. Why decide to try to go for it there when you're backed up in your own territory and your quarterback hasn't really had success for pretty much the whole half? And Steichen went into his explanation saying, that we started off with a run to see if we get some good yardage. We did, so we thought, let's try to be aggressive here. That first throw on that by Anthony Richardson there, it almost intercepted because Michael Pittman slips coming out of his break, and that was almost a pick six there. That third down call, in my opinion, it should have been a run. You're sitting there, you need to run it, try to make the Texans waste a timeout. And then punt it away. Use Rigoberto Sanchez to get it as deep as possible, and you hope your defense can hold up. But the Colts obviously didn't see it that way, and the play call was atrocious. It really was. You look at the play call on film, and it's guys just running hitch routes. The Texans were all over it, and then to on top of that, Anthony Richardson was late with the football. 2 Josh Downs. Jalen Petrie was reading it the entire way, and it was the perfect recipe for an easy interception by the Texans. And then one play later, CJ Stroud finds Tank Dell for a touchdown. So it was an incredibly stupid decision by Shane Steichen to try to run that play. It was an incredibly stupid decision by Anthony Richardson to throw that ball. Just not good. all the way around. And both those guys, I think, deserve the blame equally for what transpired.
Yeah, you can't go into the freaking half tied at 10. All right. You're playing a grinded out game and you can't be late on hitch routes, for God's sakes. Like, so like you can tell if anybody watching this, everybody watching this, thank you so much. But you can tell me and Andrew, even though we do cover this team and we are professional, it was a frustrating day. Even to cover the team.
Frustrating day because you could see from our 30,000 foot view, and we know that we're not coaches or whatever,
Sure.
but you can still. It's just there needs to be smarter football in all facets of this offense. Paul, thank you again so much for all of your support, man. We really, really do appreciate it. We're 35 minutes in, and we've been talking about Anthony Richardson this entire time. Drake, let's talk about Shane Steichen and that play calling. That's a good segue from Paul there. What do you think needs to change with the play calling for Shane Steichen? Obviously, I think I have made my takes fairly clear, but what do you think? What do you think Shane Steichen can do to really get this team out of a rut and start making things easier for Anthony Richardson, which I think just needs to be the biggest goal moving forward?
I have to quote our own Zach Hicks on this one. You either need to be the 2018, 19, 20 Baltimore Ravens, where you are run heavy with explosive shots, and you're committed to it, and you know your identity, because the Colts' offensive identity right now is nothing. I'll tell you what it is. It's inefficiency. That's what it is. So you either need to lean heavily into AR's running ability, lean heavily into the fact that you have a former rushing king of the NFL and an offensive line you're paying a crap ton of money to. Or, they're trying to make him kind of like Andrew Luck was when he was a rookie, about 53, 55%, but Luck could make those downfield throws. And they were like, okay, we're okay with your 50%, 55% completion percentage, but you're still hitting a lot of those deep throws. Well, Richardson, the play calling just kept going down the field. And I think that what you have to do is you've got to incorporate Richardson's strengths. You've got to make things easier for him, make life simpler for him. But also, guys, the receivers have to catch the freaking ball. So it's like it's on everybody here. The whole offense needs to really self-reflect and ask themselves, what can we do to bounce back on Sunday night? Because everyone around the world's going to be watching.
They do need to really look at themselves and get contributions from everyone. But I think from a play calling standpoint, Drake, it's what the Colts were doing in the third quarter. They came out in the third quarter, they leaned on Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not saying you run Jonathan Taylor into the ground with 35 carries. That's not smart either. But you can lean on Jonathan Taylor. You can lean on the RPO game where you get some quick 1 to 2 read throws for Anthony Richardson to allow him to get into a rhythm, not come out passing where you have 15 or 13, 12 of the first 15 plays being throws from Anthony Richardson, where you're trying to do when you do a half-ass play action that isn't going to fool anybody. Start with the RPO game, make sure Jonathan Taylor is involved early, and get the ball out quickly. The quick game helps tremendously in this aspect because you slow down that pass rush. And teams are starting to key in on Anthony Richardson because they know he doesn't do his best work against when there's a lot of pressure in his face. Sure, he can get out of it. But again, no quarterback's going to do their best work when they're facing a lot of pressure. The quick game neutralizes a lot of that. And I'm not saying you need to turn into the offense of last year with Gardner Minshew, where we barely saw a ball travel more than 15 yards down the field. But don't rely so heavily on these low percentage throws. The deep shots to Alec Pierce are fun and they get us all really excited to see, but that's not how you consistently win football games. And it's not how you get a young quarterback to develop, get his confidence up, and allow the game to slow down for him. I think what we saw last year when the game was starting to slow down for Anthony Richardson was, again, he was getting into that rhythm. He was seeing things a lot clearer. Now, when you're just chucking it down the field, you're not doing much reading. You're kind of just waiting there until your guy gets down the field. And there's not much development. There's not going to be much development there. You have to be able to run the quick game, lean on the running game with Jonathan Taylor, lean on the running game with Anthony Richardson, and then you're going to open up things down the field. The Houston Texans yesterday were in too high shell for pretty much the entire game, and Shane Steichen just didn't care. He didn't care. He just kept calling up these deep shots. You can't just keep forcing this on Anthony Richardson. You have to. The one of the big pluses for Shane Steichen was he always he puts the offense around the quarterback's strengths or what the quarterback needs at the time. So yes, Anthony Richardson, one of his strengths is the deep ball. But again, that's one of the lowest percentage throws you can do in the NFL. You have to set up those deep shots. You can't just be leading off with those deep shots. That's not how you're going to have consistent winning football with Anthony Richardson and in the NFL. You paid Jonathan Taylor for a reason. Lean on him. You drafted Anthony Richardson, number 4 overall, because of his dual threat ability. Certainly wasn't his ability right now, at least, to throw the football accurately and consistently. Use those legs, lean into that so you can make things easier for the rest of the offense to in the quick game, in those intermediate areas. Let Anthony Richardson settle into the game so he doesn't have to feel like he has to press right out the gate. That's what needs to happen. If the Colts follow what they did in the third quarter yesterday, where they had their most offensive success and into the early part of the fourth, that's the recipe for success for this Indianapolis Colts offense. Not having Anthony Richardson drop back and try to throw bombs with 6 out of his first 8 throws.
Yeah, and you're talking about a defense that has the secondary to make those plays. And again, it's the strength of Richardson to run the football. And we all preached about how exciting this duo was going to be in the running game of Taylor and Richardson. And while Taylor had 20 carries and Richardson had 6, I mean, I dare say they probably could have given Taylor 5 more. You know, maybe he makes something happen with those throws. But then you go to the receivers. You got Downs with 4 catches, Pittman 1, Sermon 1, Taylor 1, Pierce 1, Mitchell 1. I mean, Granson 1. I mean, holy cow, just complete inefficiency. But it really needs to start with the ground game. I mean, Taylor is a top 3 running back, top 5 running back in the NFL. Richardson has the top level quarterback athleticism in the NFL. Use those things. Even if you're down 7 to 10 points, you probably still need to run the football more often than not.
Yeah. And the thing is too, when you look at the offensive supporting cast yesterday, Jonathan Taylor was fantastic. Josh Downs was fantastic. Outside of that, not much else. You know, you had multiple drops throughout the offense from Michael Pittman, from Will Mallory, Adonai Mitchell certainly wasn't able to get his feet down. Alec Pierce wasn't really involved much in the game. Kylan Granson wasn't involved, by the way. I mean, again, where's the tight ends? You know, do the Colts even have a competent tight end on the roster
different
right
episode,
now?
Andrew. We don't have time for that.
We don't. But in the offensive line, again, not very good. Bernard Ryman had easily his worst game all year. Quentin Nelson with 3 false starts. Ryan Kelly certainly didn't have a good game. I think the only offensive lineman we didn't see or didn't hear mentioned was Dalton Tucker, which is saying something. So it's hard to have success, and it's hard for Anthony Richardson to have success too when he has to carry a good majority of the offense, and he has a lot of his teammates from his receiving core to his offensive line are hurting him and letting him down, because outside of Taylor and Downs yesterday, Drake, there was nothing going there for Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, Richardson has to grow from this. The offense has to learn with him, and it's only going to happen if he stays out there under center, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, you can't give up on him now, and you can't turn to a 17-year veteran of the NFL that might have 2 or 3 years left at the most.
Yeah, that's kind of where I sit. The Colts made their bed by drafting Anthony Richardson at number 4 overall. Now they got to lie in it. They got to see this through, unfortunately. And I know fans are going to be frustrated, but the alternative isn't better. The alternative is Joe Flacco, who maybe wins you 1 or 2 more games. The Colts maybe squeak into the wild card, probably not. Then you're stuck here with, again, no answer. So you got to let this thing ride through to fully find out if Anthony Richardson is the answer. And if he isn't by the end of 2025, I know that's a long way away for Colts fans, and they don't want to see that. But at this point, that's your best option. Your best option is to see if Anthony Richardson is going to be good. Because, again, this quarterback class of this upcoming draft, they always get pushed up the draft board. But let's be real here, guys. Most of the draft pundits that you and I trust, Dane Brugler, Daniel Jeremiah, they're all saying it's not a good quarterback class. So if you're and the Colts really won't be in the position to take one of the better ones in this class anyway. So
tight end.
Tight end Malachi Starks. Let's get that train going again. But you just got to let it ride. And unfortunately, that's you have to put your eggs in this basket of Anthony Richardson, because if not, then this Colts team, as we know it, both front office, coaching staff, and players, is probably absolutely toast. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball, Drake, real quick, because they do deserve some love. Consistent pressure of CJ Stroud yesterday. Again, the box score doesn't do it justice. It really doesn't, because when you look at CJ Stroud's stats, he had a decent game. When you look at the box score, was 25 of 37 for 285 yards, had a touchdown, was only sacked twice, but the Colts pressured Stroud. They had 25 pressures total on CJ Stroud yesterday, according to Pro Football Focus. And it was led by DeForest Buckner and Dio Odangbo. Absolute monsters, those two. DeForest Buckner, coming back from the ankle injury, gets a sack. It really does his job there in the middle, and Dio Odangbo was shot out of a cannon. Dio Odangbo gets another sack, picks up a fumble by Joe Mixon, and honestly was very, very close to returning at 82 yards for a touchdown that would have put the Colts over the top and given them the victory. So both of those guys were fantastic. Kwity Paye and Leatu Latu didn't really show up in the stat column, but they were one of the highest in pressures all game. And as we hear right here, Stats Matt stat of the day, he's got them ready, locked and loaded, presented by Busch Light. The Colts had 23 pressure dropbacks yesterday on CJ. I said 25 from Pro Football Focus, but Dio was 7, Kwity was 6, Latu with 5, and Buckner with 4. All of those guys were getting to CJ Stroud and putting pressure on the Texans quarterback. CJ was pressured on 57.5% of his dropbacks, but was 11 for 21 for 148 yards and a touchdown. It's just good play by CJ Stroud. The Colts defensive line was doing everything they could to get after him. They did their job yesterday. Sometimes better quarterback play. That just happens in the NFL when you're facing a quarterback at the level of CJ Stroud. But this Colts defensive line did more than enough to win the football game yesterday.
Yeah, I got to give a shout out to Dio Odangbo, who I believe now actually leads the team in sacks, which is wild. Which, Leatu Latu, he had a good game pressuring, like you mentioned, Kwity Paye as well. And DeForest Buckner, you just expect that. But look, I'm just going to say this. Dio Odangbo, you probably need to think about re-signing him this offseason.
I'd be shocked if the Colts don't, and I don't think he's going to cost $20 million a year, but you sign Dio Odangbo to a contract that looks like the Samson Ebukam deal. If you can get him for that, I think that'd be a steal, and you would probably do that in a heartbeat. And then the run defense for the Colts, Drake, well, it certainly wasn't as good as you would probably hope it to be. Really, the only running back that they let do anything all day was Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had 102 yards on the ground, but outside of Joe Mixon, who had 102 yards, the rest of the Texans team rushing had -8 yards total. So it was really only Joe Mixon that was able to do anything against this Colts team. And again, he got 102 yards on 25 carries. The Colts as a whole only allowed 96 yards on the ground yesterday compared to 155 yards they were averaging before that point. Again, the Colts run defense did their job yesterday, holding this Texans team to only 23 points. Again, should have probably been only about 16, considering that after that interception, the Texans started first and goal from their own 7. Really going to be hard to stop them from that with all the momentum. The Colts defense did a pretty good job. And again, this Colts offense wasted away probably one of the best called games by Gus Bradley that we've seen in his Colts tenure. Gus Bradley did a really good job with this defense, with the calls. He brought pressure. He was doing simulated pressure, disguising looks. This Colts defense was really on point yesterday, and it should have been enough to win this football game.
Yeah, and we have to give Gus Bradley his flowers because he had a great game plan for CJ Stroud without Nico Collins. I mean, he really did. But Joe Mixon, I have to also give him his flowers because he's playing out of his mind this season for the Texans. He was constantly running through contact. He was running right through Zaire Franklin's tackles. I mean, Joe Mixon is a problem for the Colts, and he's had good success against Indianapolis in his career. So, but yeah, man, I think you mentioned in our preview of this game, hey, if the Colts have between, 110, 120 yards allowed rushing, you call that a win. And they did. They did better than that, actually, and they still couldn't get it done. Like you mentioned, this is probably a 16-point game, and Gus Bradley probably did enough as a defensive coordinator, and so did the defense themselves to win this game.
Yeah, I really don't have any qualms with this Colts defense. Yes, did Samuel Womack give up some plays? Yeah, I think it was probably his worst game as a Colt. Saying a lot because saying a lot because he's been phenomenal all year.
Sure.
Yes, the Colts gave up a really big play to Stephon Diggs, but on that same play, Kwity Paye was basically put in a chokehold and it wasn't called. So not sure why that was missed. Want to also give a shout out to Kenny Moore II. Kenny Moore II's an absolute dog. Drake, we say it all the time, but what a game by Kenny Moore, from his pass coverage ability to stopping the run, to stopping screen passes, basically running through the wide receiver to stop John Mechie or Robert Woods, whoever caught that ball for negative yardage. Like, my God, Kenny Moore was all over the place. This Colts defense deserved to win that football game yesterday. Unfortunately, it just didn't pan out. So now here we are with the Colts set at 4-4 on the season. They were in a playoff spot if the season ended in week 7, no longer in a playoff spot. And here they are coming up on they already started their hardest part of their schedule, but now it's Minnesota Vikings on Sunday Night Football. After that, it is the Buffalo Bills. After that, it's the New York Jets. After that, it's the Detroit Lions. It's really a tough stretch for this Colts team, Drake. So with everything that's going on, talking about the quarterback situation, the offensive struggles, and everything that comes with it, where do you see the Colts going from here? Honestly, are you expecting a bounce back? Are you expecting the message to be sent? Or I guess maybe a better question would be, what do the Colts need to do from here in order to be successful?
It's gut check time for Indianapolis. It's gut check time for Steichen as a coach. It's gut check time for Richardson as a quarterback. I think a lot of guys are humiliated. We saw Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, Richardson walking, through the tunnel into the locker room, especially Zaire Franklin and Shane Steichen. They both looked like they just saw a ghost. Like, Zaire Franklin looked like he was thinking in his mind, what the hell just happened? Which you've asked yourself that multiple times with number 44 this year. But it's gut check time, dude. You're facing a team now that just got robbed with a face mask call against the Rams, and they are looking to kick your ass, and they're going to be at home after you just laid a turd of a performance offensively. So I think that you got to answer the bell, or else you're going to get overwhelmed pretty quickly, because these next 4 games, 2 of them are prime time within 3 weeks of each other. So you just cannot. You've got to answer the bell. It's truly the definition of a gut check moment.
Exactly. Not only are you facing a Vikings team that is probably pissed off and wanting to get back on track, but it's on Sunday Night Football, where the entire country is watching. You can't hide. And you already know the broadcast, and the Colts don't care about this really, but the entire broadcast, every time the Colts step out on the field, is going to talk about Anthony Richardson. Every little thing he does is going to be under a microscope. And honestly, all he has to blame is himself for that, because of what he did this week and because of his past performance. Every little thing he does, every missed throw is going to be scrutinized. Every mistake is going to be scrutinized. Every time he makes a mistake, you're going to see that camera pan over to Joe Flacco. That's how the broadcast is going to be.
Or to them together.
Yes, exactly. So you're right, Drake. It is gut check time. This is a pivotal moment in the career of Anthony Richardson and in this coaching career of Shane Steichen. It has to be much better on Sunday night in front of the entire country. This could be a tipping point where the Colts could either start to spiral, or they could lose the locker room if this continues like this. When you have the defense playing well, the offense letting them down, or you get an all-around performance by the whole team, and Anthony Richardson still doesn't perform well. So again, this is as pivotal of a moment in Anthony Richardson's career as he has faced to this point. You either start showing progression, start playing good football. Shane Steichen needs to start putting him in better positions, or else the Anthony Richardson experiment could be over quicker than we ever thought it could be.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you don't want that, because this entire offense, the coaching staff, the approach, the money they've spent, it's been to support Anthony Richardson as being your franchise quarterback of the future and Steichen as being your franchise leader. So Steichen and Richardson, those are the top two guys that need to look themselves in the mirror and say, what are we doing here? They need to talk to each other, communicate better, and the rest of the team needs to help them as well.
Exactly. So you guys, hope you buckled in for a long episode tonight. But we still have a couple of things that we got to get to, starting with the Colts injury report. And luckily, this isn't that long, Drake, which is good. But unfortunately, we already kind of touched on it a little bit. Bernhard Raimann did come to the facility today and did report concussion symptoms that started happening this morning. So he has been placed in the concussion protocol. Tough, really tough. And honestly, it's going to be difficult for him to get through the protocol before that game on Sunday night. It's not impossible, but it's going to be tough for him to do that. And if so, then you're likely looking at Matt Gonzalez getting the start at left tackle for his first ever start, going up against Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and that defense that Brian Flores incorporates, where it's a lot of pressure. So that's a big ask for Matt Gonzalez. The Vikings also aren't going to have their left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, who had knee surgery and is out for the season. So they're going to have, I think it's Quisenberry is going to be in there at left tackle. If so, Leatu Latu. This might be the breakout game for Leatu Latu. But losing Bernhard Raimann, I know he played pretty poor in that game against the Texans. But overall, Bernhard Raimann has still been a stud for most of, if not, for most of this season. And the Colts' offensive line is much worse when he's not out there.
Yeah, and it's pretty much been in the one game where we've been like, wow, he really didn't play that well. But like you mentioned, I mean, other than that, Bernhard Raimann, 79 has just been trending up. So
yeah,
big loss.
Absolutely. Two other players were placed on injured reserve for the Colts. Jalen Carlisle, who hurt his fibula and is dealing with a shoulder injury, was placed on IR, so he is out for at least the next 4 games. And then Trevor Dembo went down on the opening kickoff yesterday, a core special teams player, special teams ace, I should say, for this Indianapolis Colts team. And he's a really good dude. Trevor Dembo is a great dude. Had to be helped off the field with a knee injury, was pretty much immediately ruled out. So it looks like Trevor Dembo's season is probably over.
Man, the Indianapolis Colts injury woes this season have been absolutely crazy. So, you got a couple guys that might have to, you got a couple defenders, one special teams ace, and arguably your best coverage linebacker are going to be out for at least 4 games, and Dembo might miss the season. So you just got to try to find somebody to replace that, and it's not easy for special teams, man. The Colts love those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go to the latest Colts news and rumors, where we do have quite a few signings to get to. And Drake,
Sure.
You mentioned somebody replacing Trevor Dembo. Looks like it's going to be Ronnie Harrison Jr. So for those that were upset that Ronnie Harrison was not on the 53-man roster for the Colts, he likely is going to be there for the rest of the season. Ronnie Harrison Jr. was signed to the 53-man roster from the practice squad to replace Trevor Dembo, and he will add some depth to that safety position. The Colts also waived running back Evan Hall this weekend to make room for make room for DeForest Buckner and Cameron McGrone to come up to the 53-man roster. So Evan Hall currently is out there on the free agent market. And honestly, Drake, I still don't get how Evan Hall didn't necessarily pan out for the Colts. I thought he was going to be a really big asset for this team when they drafted him. He was one of my favorites in the 2023 NFL draft. And unfortunately, he hasn't panned out. It's been Tyler Goodson taking over that role. And we saw that didn't necessarily work out yesterday.
Yeah, if he gets through waivers, he might be right back on the practice squad at some point. I think Indianapolis at least has an affinity for what Hull can do. But yeah, that's been one of the more perplexing, like, how can this not work for me? Because he has so many things to offer out of the backfield.
Yes, exactly. And then finally, some practice squad moves. The Colts signed tackle Sebastian Gutierrez and guard Josh Sills to the practice squad, and they also released tackle Jack Wilson from the practice squad to kind of fill that out. But the biggest news of the signing today, Ronnie Harrison Jr. Getting elevated to the 53-man roster. The other biggest news, Drake, about this, Spencer Schrader was not added back onto the practice squad. What the hell is going on? This should be breaking news. Spencer Schrader is not on the practice squad. I give it till Thursday. Next time we talk to you guys, he'll be back on the practice squad. But all right, Drake, let's wrap it up here. The Colts player of the game. I think there's at least a couple of guys that are very, very deserving of this award, but I want to see who you name as the Colts player of the game.
I'm going to give it to Dio Dangbo. Dio Dangbo played with his ass on fire. He was a true hurricane. Hell of a football player. He's starting to look like he's fleshing out as that second round pick that they wanted him to be. I think that he needs a new contract.
Chat, let us know who your player of the game is. Stats Matt says Dio and Dio only. Yeah, there were, like I said, there were a couple of guys that could capture this as the Colts player of the game. Hustle Man Jones saying Dio is the player of the game easily. Yeah, guys, I've got to give it to Dio Dangbo as well. Was an absolute menace out there against the Houston Texans. Dio Dangbo making the most of his opportunities. 4 tackles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits, the fumble recovery that could have very easily been a touchdown return, 7 pressures on the day. He was an absolute menace. Hurricane Dio lived up to his nickname yesterday and brought it for this Colts defensive line. So you always got to be ready for your opportunity, and Dio Dangbo certainly was. Right. We're also getting some love for Josh Downs. Sean Cartwright saying Josh Downs, and then as well as Hustleman Jones saying Josh Downs had a day for sure as well. Paul Wilson, I'm not going to put up that your player of the game for the sarcasm there, but hey, I do appreciate it on this type of an episode. But Drake, like you said, gut check time for the Indianapolis Colts. Big game ahead against the Minnesota Vikings. The Colts aren't out of it by any means. We're talking. I feel like a lot of the discourse today has been acting like the Colts are like the New York Jets or the Jacksonville Jaguars or the Tennessee Titans. But the Colts are 500. You know, I know the Colts fans are sick of being at 500, but there's still a lot of football left to be played. If you want to look at this as a glass half full type of thing, a lot of football left to be played. And I think as Colts fans, you're just hoping that Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson can start to turn it around. And this was the gut check, the punch in the mouth that these guys needed to really get this thing going.
Yeah, they got humiliated. Okay. And now you're going to be put on a national scale where you're the only game playing in the evening, baby. So you either answer the call and you make a game out of this for yourself, or you continue to go down this just absolute endless river of mediocrity. So we'll have to see. But yeah, this upcoming game is going to tell a lot for the future of the Steichen Richardson experiment we got here in India.
Before we get out of here, Drake, Hustleman Jones wants to know where you got that hat. He's been dying to know, thinks that hat's sick. It's a pretty dope hat, I will admit. Where'd you get that hat?
So my fiance Aubrey actually got it for me from Rally Sports in Indianapolis.
Ooh, there you go. There you go. And by the way,
Rally
guys,
House Sports.
Drake just celebrated a birthday. I forgot to tell you guys last Thursday, but his birthday was last Friday. The man is another year older, another year wiser. So please give Drake a shout out. Give him a happy birthday. It wasn't the best birthday weekend Colts football wise for Drake, but hey, you roll with the punches here when you're following the Indianapolis Colts. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in and just getting it all out on this Colts team and everything that has transpired over the last couple of days. Want to give a shout out to our super chats of Truett and Paul Wilson. Thank you guys so much for all of your support and everything else that all you guys that join in, talk Colts football with us every single Monday and Thursday night. It's really, really fun to do. And if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials. The links are in the description. I say it every night. You should know where to go. And before you go, leave a like on the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel and click that bell to turn on your notifications. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, please subscribe and give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, tell the people what they've got to check out on Indianapolis Colts on SI before we get on out of here.
Yeah, so there was a former Pro Bowler offensive lineman that blasted Anthony Richardson for his performance. So go check that out and see a little bit more about that. But then, of course, I have my risers and fallers in a disastrous loss to the Texans.
Yeah, make sure to check that out. And guys, I've got some good stuff out there as well. Definitely look at the Anthony Richardson side of things from his game against the Texans. He drove in detail. I went in on him subbing out of the game, on his play, what happened, the comments, what Shane Steichen needs to do. It was a long article, but I think it's well worth the read. And then I also gave my analysis on what it means with Shane Steichen saying that we're evaluating everything, and his interesting eye-popping comments I think I put in the title on Anthony Richardson. So I give my full analysis there as well. So be sure to check that out, as well as everything else on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. We'll be back Thursday night to get you all set for the Colts' first primetime game of the season. Colts at Vikings. It's either going to go very, very well or very, very poorly. I don't think there's going to be any in between for this Colts team. But guys, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you right back here on Thursday night. Take it easy, everyone.